Jeffrey Haynes, and welcome to Health on the Line. The topic today is not glamorous. In fact, for sufferers, it's embarrassing and excruciating. Irritable bowel syndrome. It's been described as a migraine in the bowels. We'll meet two people who spent years living in constant pain and isolation. We'll also hear from the experts about what causes it, and we'll have more on the new research that suggests the happy chemical in your brain, serotonin, might help control it. But first, meet a young woman who's been living with IBS since she was a child. This is Suzanne Glazer's story.
I'm 26 years old. I'm a recent university graduate. My majors were human resources and communications, and I'm currently living with IBS, from which I've suffered for most of my life. I first started having trouble with my stomach and my bowels when I was a child, probably from the age of 4 or 5 on. I always had stomach aches and chronic stomach pains, and it sort of went undiagnosed, and they didn't know what was wrong. And then it stopped for about a 10-year period, and then it returned about 3 years ago. It was a constant pain. It was pain in my stomach. It was pain in my back, and it was severe to the point that I couldn't get myself out of bed in the morning. It was also accompanied with a feeling of nausea, constipation, and just overall difficulties in everyday movement or living, lifestyle-wise. I had to take a leave of absence from my work. It affected every part of my life. It really locked me up inside, and it made me feel like there was something wrong with me, but nobody knew what it was, so I was confused and I was very stressed, and it almost put me through a depression. In learning how to manage IBS, I had to take laxatives because I suffer from constipation. I would go weeks on end. I could go 2-3 weeks without going to the bathroom, so I had to start taking laxatives. And taking laxatives caused me even more frustration because I would take them sometimes and they wouldn't work. And so I was scared to go out. I was scared to be away from my own bathroom. So living on laxatives became another reason to sort of lock myself up, and it isolated me from my life. There was no solution. There was no medication I could take that helped me. It was just a matter of I had to learn to deal with it. And when somebody tells you to deal with severe pain, it's not the easiest thing to do. You know, when you're 24 years old and you're obsessed with your bowel movements, that's not living. When I was suffering from IBS and it was sort of locking me up inside and I was too scared to go out, I went from being a total extrovert person to wanting to just be introverted. I didn't want to go out and socialize. I didn't want to go to bars and clubs where at 23 and 24 years old, it should have been the time of my life. I should have been out partying, and instead I was at home obsessing over my bowels. I couldn't think of my future. Everything I did was I would think about today, and I would worry about tomorrow, because living with IBS, you have to really focus on yourself and you have to learn to cope with stress. And to me, thinking about my future was just stress, because I never knew where I was going to be or what was going to happen. I always thought of the worst. I always thought, you know, I was going to end up back in the hospital, or I was going to end up bedridden again. So the thought of thinking ahead terrified me.
And Suzanne Glazer joins me now in studio. Thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Now, this isn't the sort of question I normally ask someone I've only just met, but since you're on the topic about irritable bowel syndrome and you suffer from the form of constipation, how long did you go without going to the bathroom at the worst point of it?
Well, the worst point had to have been over 30 days, and that was 30 days of the most excruciating pain and discomfort that I've ever been through.
And when you talk about putting life on hold, I mean, having to leave your job, not having relationships, I mean, really everything kind of came to a standstill.
It did. I stopped going out. I sort of shut myself down. I didn't want to talk to my friends on the phone. I was really feeling sorry for myself, and I didn't know how to cope with my own problem of suffering from IBS and the world around me at the same time, so I just sort of closed myself off.
And at that point, you didn't know it was IBS. You didn't know what was going on.
No, I had no idea. All I knew was I was in pain. I never felt good. I couldn't do anything. My life was ending, and nobody around me could provide me with the right answers.
When you were going through this sort of medical odyssey to try to figure out what was going on, you must have been seeing doctors, and they were telling you what?
They would tell me that it was a stomach ache, or it was just, they didn't know what it was, and, you know, maybe it was in my head, or maybe it was just stress, or, you know, I had to learn to cope with stress, or maybe it was what I was eating and I should stop eating the foods that I was eating. And they sort of steered me in every different direction possible to try and make me believe that whatever was wrong with my stomach was something internal, and there was really nothing wrong because the medical tests showed nothing.
That it was something psychological, that stress was causing it or something else.
Exactly.
And when you talk about, we saw those adorable pictures of you as a little girl, and your memories of being that age and sort of suffering the same thing.
Yeah, well, as a child, I was really locked up. I'd go to school, and then I'd get a stomach ache, and right away I'd go to the office, and they knew, call my mom, tell her to come pick me up, and off to the doctor we'd go, and off to the hospital we would go. And it was the same thing with, they couldn't figure out what was the cause of the pain.
And when you finally got the diagnosis not that long ago that it was irritable bowel syndrome?
It was an answer. It was what I was looking for. It was an answer telling me the reason you're in such pain, the reason you're suffering from constipation is because of IBS. And it was sort of a starting point that now you know what it is, now it's time to learn to cope with it and to learn what you can do to make it better.
And what have you done to make it better?
It's been a combination of factors. Right now, currently I'm on a medication. I'm on Zelnorm, and that's working wonders for me. In the beginning, before Zelnorm, I lived on laxatives because I needed to cope with constipation. That was the only way to do it. I tried different diets. I tried exercise. I would eat nothing, then I would eat everything. And it was just a combination of things, and I really never learned what was right for me at the time.
And the laxatives really do more harm than good in the long term, don't they? I mean, they're pretty nasty to be taking a lot of laxatives.
It did. It caused more pain. It started off with I could take 2 and hopefully go to the bathroom, and then it became take 4 and hopefully go to the bathroom, and then it was take 6 and still not go to the bathroom. So it became that, you know, my system was dependent on them, but they stopped working.
Could you talk to your friends about it, or was it too embarrassing?
My friends didn't really understand. My family understood because they lived with me, they saw my suffering, and they suffered with me. My friends didn't understand because I would say I'm in pain, I don't feel good, I can't go out, and they were like, why, you know, just, it'll go away, you know, it's just a stomach ache. But they didn't realize the kind of stomach ache that it was.
And when you talk about that pain, it's not a stomach ache. I mean, this is excruciating is not an underestimation.
Not at all. It was a pain that locked me up. It kept me in bed. I couldn't move. All I wanted to do was be asleep because that was the only way I could cope with it, was to take some sort of medication that would knock me out, put me to sleep, and that was the only way I could deal with the pain.
And how are things now?
Now things are great. Things are back to normal. I'm living again. I'm not obsessing over my bowels. I'm not taking laxatives. I'm taking Zelnorm, and that's really helping me. I'm not worried about what I'm eating anymore. I'm living again. I'm back into the lifestyle that I was before I got sick.
Okay. We do have to take a break. Stay with us, though. When we come back, we'll meet the man who Suzanne says changed her life. Don't go away.